We are live. It tells me we are now live. You know, how many years have I been doing this? And I still like, am I live? Am I not live? You know, because it actually, this is kind of cool. This new service I'm using, it really does mean it. When it says I'm live, I'm live. But it wasn't, it the other way doesn't work like that. Anyway, welcome. She says, I'm getting closer to the screen. Otherwise you won't be able to hear me. And how is Katie Smith? Everyone, this is Katie Smith, our most amazing coach, friend, a woman of many adventures. And Katie, where is it you live? I've forgotten. It's down south somewhere, yeah?
Oh, yeah. I'm right in the East Ridge Mountains. I'm in eastern Tennessee.
In Tennessee. I'm going to turn you up because I can't quite hear you. In eastern Tennessee. Wow. And so that was where there were stories about horses. I think there was a whole range of stories about a horse in the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Ooh,
So I don't know if you've ever saw that.
no, I
Yeah.
haven't seen that one. But if you've seen The Last of the Mohegans,
Yes.
it was
Ah.
filmed in our mountains.
Mm. Okay. Yep, got it. So now, I invited you on here because you are one of the most interesting and positive and kind people that I know. So my head can grow now.
Boost.
And I know I've started this Real Lives with Lisa because I want to talk to real people doing real things, and I think it's really interesting. You know, we've got chat shows on TV, and they're like the superstars, the pop stars, the multimillionaires, and actually they're like the tiny percentage of the world. But I want to talk to real people who are doing real things that are, you know, that we don't hear about every day because you're not yet super famous, although I no doubt that you will be. And you are actually pretty well known in the coaching area. And so, because you're building your business. So, but let's just go back a little, if I may, Katie. Now, you weren't always in the coaching speaking area. Tell me a little bit about your story. Like, where did you come from? What's your background?
Oh, well, Lisa, it's so wonderful to be with you. Like, I just want your audience to know, like, every time that I spend time with you, I am so enriched in every way. I just walk away from my conversations with you feeling like I can go scale these Eastern mountains and just like reach the peaks because that's how amazing you are. And that's how you show up over and over again. You're just brilliant. You're doing your marketing, you're doing your coaching, you're doing your animal therapy and finding so many ways to serve people. You're just incredible. So thank you for being in my life and for honoring me with your presence.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. Now my head is now no longer going to fit in the screen. But
But
now,
seriously though, like that's why your audience loves you. And that's why I wanted to talk with you today, because you are just that wonderful and you bring out the best in me. And I want to thank you for that. And so speaking of bringing out the best, so, we worked with international students for many, many years. This was a passion of my husband's and mine. And I am a committed Christian. And so, knowing the love of God and sharing the love of God is a big, it's like the most important thing in my life. And my husband invited me. He's like, we're going to work with international students in San Diego. And I'm like, I love San Diego. It's my
was this
hometown. Let's
how
go.
old was this when you were quite like okay? Because you've been married a while. Congratulations, right? How,
Yeah. There are 5 divorces in my family. And yeah, so when we got married, we were like, okay, are we really that committed? And the answer was yes. So it's been a test, and it's definitely grown us, and we're definitely better for it. But no, we didn't start out working with international students. Actually, we had this joke because we realized in our 16th year of marriage, somebody was interviewing us, and we said, we've been married for 16 years. The last 4 have been great. And so they were like, wait a minute, the
what
last
happened?
4?
What happened to the pre? Yeah, right.
Yeah, what happened before that? So there's some ugly chapters, right? And that's just life. We're all developing and growing, and maybe we could have a fun time talking about all the mistakes we made. But But what happened that changed everything was that we got into our groove of what we were really passionate about. We're really passionate about God, really passionate about serving others, and really passionate about our family. And we didn't want to be going in different directions. So we said, what can we do that all of us could kind of be together and work on this together? And what that looked like for us was hosting the international students that my husband was teaching at San Diego State University. And also we had students from all over San Diego.
So he's a professor? He's a professor? He's a teacher, professor? Yeah, okay, good.
Yes, he's a linguistic professor. Okay. Yeah, so his students ended up coming over, and at first I was like, this is a really bad idea. Like, I love the Europeans and stuff, but I didn't love everybody else, or not everybody else, but Middle Easterners. I'll just be so straight with you. Like, Middle Easterners were really hard for me, and I was really scared, and I had to really press into my faith. And he's like, get ready, they're coming for dinner. And I'm like, what? No. And they did. He had 2 students that came. They're both Saudis. They came over for dinner. They were the sweetest people. And I was like, I'm not sure how I feel about this. Well, then they moved in, and we ended up being a homestay family while we were homeschooling our kids.
Oh, and it was, my goodness.
It was really an adventure in saying, okay, what does it really look like to live out my faith? And after many doing that, we had a family member come to live with us, and that was like a whole nother level. So now I'm homeschooling, I'm partnering with my.
Oh, I lost the feed for a second. So keep talking, because you're still live on Facebook, but you're frozen to me. Yay! It's frozen. So you have frozen on me. So one of our systems is not playing ball. I wonder which one it is. She's gone. Hopefully she'll come back, because I think the problem is Katie's end, because Katie froze on me, and so she should be back any second, and she rejoins the Zoom, and we'll be able to continue, because it was just getting interesting, and then I've lost her. So let me just see if I can send her a message, and let's hope that she can rejoin. Okay, this is what happens when you go live, and I'm just asking her to rejoin. Okay. I was noticing, I think her internet has gone down. So while we're waiting for Katie to rejoin us, how is everyone? If I just go to, oh, she's back. I was going to say, you guys can ask me questions. She's back. Okay, I haven't got your audio yet. Unmute.
Here we go.
Yay.
Okay. Sorry about that.
I think your internet crashed out. Yay, no worries.
Crashed it. I was telling the story and I crashed it. So
you were telling us about it was getting overwhelming. You had a family member staying. You had guests. You were homeschooling your kids, and I hope you have a big house, because it needed to.
We did. We had a big house, and we were living in San Diego, so we could go to the beach or go to the mountains as much as we wanted, which was wonderful. So, but I got to the point where I couldn't manage it, and maybe Lisa, maybe you can relate to this. I'm sure other people can, where you're doing everything you possibly can, and then all of a sudden you hit a wall, and you can't push through it. And for me, I started having anxiety attacks, and I was like, what is going on? And I ended up having to ask my family member to move out, and it was like the worst thing that could have happened, because here I am, this Christian, trying to show the love of Jesus
to everybody. Yep.
And then I couldn't show it to like the most important person, right? Somebody in my own family. And so that was I don't know if you've heard this saying before, a come to Jesus moment for me, where I said, quite literally, Jesus, take the wheel. And I said, there's something wrong here. And I know there's something wrong here, but what is it? And it was that crisis moment that really brought me to my knees. And I said, I've got to figure out what it means to love and to be loved, to be able to take care of myself while I'm loving others. And so that was the turning point for me of figuring out, what does it mean to be responsible for myself? What does it mean to know what my limits are and to know what my own desires are and to live those out in a way that isn't super selfish, but also isn't a doormat. And for me, that was crazy. Like I grew up Irish, Catholic, Italian. Like, you don't say no to your family. You don't say, did you say no to your family growing up, Lisa?
Not very often.
No, you can't say no.
And even if it hurts, we know, even if it hurts, I mean, with like all sorts of bad things that go on in families, sometimes we're just trained that you do what you're told. I mean, our family shapes us for better or worse.
Right. Exactly. So I grand unshaping, I had to go through this grand unshaping. And, as I'm thinking about how to articulate myself, even to be here with you, I realized that was the making of me as a boundaries coach. And I call boundaries now the treasures of our soul. They're the things that only we are responsible for. Nobody else is going to answer for this stuff, but we are going to answer for these things. And I'm a little excited and a little nervous, so I'm going to read them to you. All right. So we're responsible for these following things: thoughts, feelings, attitudes, behaviors, beliefs, choices, values, limits, talents, desires, and who or what we love and trust. So this was like the remaking of Katie Smith. And so
gosh, yeah. But these are the fundamental parts. It's like, take a human being and those are who we are, right? That's a great list. Yeah, I love it.
Great list. Love it. It's from Dr. Henry Cloud. If you Google it's his material. Awesome. He's like the boundaries guy. Yeah. But doing that study, I realized like so much of my life I loved, but I needed more alone time. I'm actually not an extrovert. I know that nobody believes that about me, because when I show up with you, I'm so excited about it, but I really do need that downtime. And so I've had to accept my limits, and that was just a huge gift. But that's also like when I'm talking with the clients that I'm coaching or, whoever, I'm like, oh, it's so wonderful to get in touch with what you actually need. And so often we don't even know, like, well, how do I feel right now? I have no idea how I feel right now. I feel out of control, And so it's something that I've come up against a lot.
I have to quickly ask you, because I'm sure there's some people who are listening to this and going, well, I feel like that sometimes. I've had a major breakdown, or I am in major breakdown, because obviously we're in a very stressful period with January 2021, very tough. We're all in lockdown of some sort or other. So how did you come to that? Were you reading? Were you studying? Did you get a coach? Was it at church? How did you get this knowledge that there was a way forward? What was that? You realized you were at your wit's end.
Right.
But what did you do to get the wisdom to then go to the next step?
Right. Well, with our nonprofit, they were like, we want you to read this book. And it was the Boundaries book, but I've read it like 5 times. So I'm like, there's something that's missing. I'm not getting what I need from this. And what it turned out to be was community. And now I know it's coaching too, that in having my own coach, I've gone so much faster than I would have. What took me 4.5 years to learn that I'm now sharing could have taken me 3 months if I had somebody walking alongside me and saying, this is the way forward. So there is a boundaries workbook, and that's the slow way. But that's also a way that God just really spoke to me. One thing that was so amazing was, I grew up, my father's not part of my life. And so I always felt like, gosh, I wish I had a dad. I'd look at other people and they'd have like these awesome fathers who taught them all the stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's not my dad, And, there are good things about him, but he just didn't fill that role. And so one of the questions from the Boundaries workbook was, in your life, who can you identify that maybe is filling the gap right now that you've just never recognized that they were filling that gap for you of that relationship that you needed, that you didn't get growing up. And sure enough, like angels started singing, the room was full. I'm kidding. I didn't really see angels, but I was like, it's Richard Newman. So there's this man in our lives that has been like our adopted dad. And you know, he just shows up at just the right moment, you know, and when we need him, he's there and he does amazing things for us. He advocates for us as a couple and as a, you know, in our work in the nonprofit. And so my mind was blown that I just didn't have eyes to see that actually this deep longing was actually being filled. And so it took a, you know, that magical question that coaches and workbooks and classes are so good at drawing us out and asking those questions so we can see the gifts that we're living right now, which is so hard to see when we're just trying to survive, you know?
Yeah. And we get into the chaos of trying to survive. I know I have. And you, so basically, I think what I'm getting from your chatting to me right now is that you need someone outside of, we all need someone outside of ourselves to help us be a bit of a mirror to show us the way if we get stuck.
Exactly.
That's one of the problems is when we get stuck alone. It's why coaching is now becoming one of the biggest, fastest growing industries, whether it be business coaching, life coaching, boundaries coaching, resilience coaching, you know, success performance, whatever you want to call it, because they're different niches. I mean, it's an incredible industry, but we're recognizing maybe, do you think because family is now, well, you know, more broken up, we don't have family? Do you think this is maybe why? It's interesting. Why is coaching taken off now? We used to have families and things. We had better connections.
Yeah. Well, I think that's so true, but I think we're living actually in a really special time in history. Like if you go, you know, our parents' generation or the generation before that, they didn't have these workbooks. They didn't have all these books on psychology and marriage and how to raise your children and how to grow as a human being. Like Jack Canfield didn't exist 50 years ago. You know what I mean? Like he was a kid. So there are all these things that we have resources for now that we didn't then. And I don't know if it would have made I wonder if it would have made the difference. I do believe that the breakdown in the family is huge for impacting where we're at right now. But with that breakdown, there's also maybe a breakthrough. And that's what I'm so thankful for about this season of the world that we're living in. Is this is an opportunity, you know, when we're not in our normal cycles of life to rewrite the story, to really look at who do we want to have in our lives right now? Who is helping us move forward and who's not? And that's what's so exciting about boundaries is it's saying like, it's okay to say, you know, I need a break from this relationship because it's not helping me move forward. Or I need more of a certain type of person. I don't even know how to describe the person, but I'm going to start Googling good people. You know what I mean? And just start somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, boundaries, it is actually, I'm just thinking about it in my life, and you know a little bit about me, and a lot of people who know me well know I was a victim of domestic violence, and that of course is a boundary issue. And I think a friend of mine who's had lots of very difficult relationships, that is a boundary issue. You know, I look at people I know who've had their money stolen. I had my money stolen. That is a boundary issue. Actually, as I think about it, everything has an element of boundaries. So that is really cool. I had never really thought of it like that, but yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So you are now a boundaries coach, life and business, because obviously that's applicable to both. Do you specialize in any particular area within that, or I mean, how do you? Or maybe our question: what's your favorite type of work to do within the coaching area?
Well, I really am fascinated by people and individuals. So I'm a generalist in that way. So I know a lot about, like you and I have both been trained really well about doing marketing and launches virtually. And we're seeing amazing progress from that. As we get better at using those tools, we get to do more. So that's something that I've started coaching in. And actually that's where I'm going in 2021 is how can I help more women, especially develop their voice, feel like they have a voice. And then if they've always been like that closet speaker, like I was, and like so many people that I know, we're the closet voices, the closet women, and we're coming out and
we're coming out to get you guys. Be careful. We're here.
But we want to be life givers. You know, we want to speak life. And now we have this fantastic platform that is just, if we didn't get it before 2020, now we're getting it, that this is the platform. It's time to go forward. So I'm really excited in 2021 to be coaching more and more women into that desire. So if they have a desire to write or to speak or to, help other women, that's something I'm so passionate about in this next year. But what's so funny, Lisa, is one of my favorite stories from a client of this past year, that he was not obviously a woman, he was a man, and he wasn't in my generation, he was in an older generation. But the one thing that he wanted, and this is what I do with anybody that I speak with, is what's the one thing that you really want? If you could pick anything to move forward in the next 3 to 6 months, what is it? And if you don't know, then I ask a bunch of other questions to help figure that out. But with this one gentleman, he said, I really want a relationship with my adult daughter. And I said, well, you're in luck, because I can help you with that. Because I've gone through that. I've gone through the reconciliation process with my own biological father, my stepfather, and with my mom. And so it's been this wonderful journey of figuring out, okay, how do I need to show up? And one of the major things was I didn't know how to receive love. I actually had this wall. And so even though I've been married for 20 years, I couldn't receive the love.
From your husband or even from your family? Do you think just generally you couldn't receive love? God.
Generally, and with my family.
Not had that experience. That's a tough one. Then you get married and you're like, how's it supposed to? I see. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought all men were supposed to be like James Bond. And so when my husband wasn't like James Bond, I was like,
oh my
I don't know what's going on here.
Oh, yeah.
But my husband has such a different personality from mine. And so I've had all these problems in relationship, all these problems in learning to give and receive love, all these problems of not feeling like I had a voice. And I had to figure out like what is true in that and what is just all in my head. And so I'm quite the generalist coach and have a lot of empathy, but also can see a strategy for others to really grow and get the life they want.
So it brings an interesting question with coaching. I mean, does a coach have to have gone through a lot, or is it a skill? Now, as somebody who's very trained, I'm always curious to know, what are your thoughts on that? What makes a good coach? You've obviously worked with good coaches. You've possibly worked with some not good coaches. You are a very good coach, and that may have something to do with what you've been through. But what would you say to that?
I would say don't coach something you're not passionate about.
Okay. So
that would be one thing. It makes sure that you're aligning with somebody who's passionate about you and your success and what you want. If your coach is not a cheerleader for you, they're probably not going to be, they might not be the best person. You need somebody who's on your side, but who can also say the hard things. And so that's an interesting and delicate balance. I don't think you have to be an expert in somebody's journey and where they're at, exactly the challenge that they're going through, to be able to coach them through it. A good coach will just help you take the next best step for you.
Oh yeah, I like that. Yeah. And help you make the steps. We did a podcast, I think the Dream Team podcast, plug. The Dream Team podcast, we need you to go and subscribe right now. The Dream Team podcast on iTunes. It's called The Dream Team Life, but thedreamteampodcast.com. On there, my last episode 3 is about Tanya, and she created a husky dog sledding business in the wilderness. That was her dream. And if you go to her website today, it's so beautiful, it's so amazing, and you think, wow, aren't these people brilliant? And it's taken them 8 years, but that's very impressive. And you think it was relatively easy. You think, well, it might have been a few hiccups, but the truth behind it is they nearly went bankrupt twice. Her husband got cancer. They had to give up one of their dish rod races. I mean, they arrived in the wilderness. The house wasn't ready. No one told them the house hadn't been built. They were supposed to have had it built. And can you imagine arriving to the wilderness and there's literally the foundations and nothing, and they had nowhere to go, but they sold their house and there was nowhere to go back. So I presume they rented a hotel, and then they built the kennel for the dogs first and moved in with the dogs. I mean, the story is incredible. And one of the things that came through in her story was one step at a time. She kept looking. She kept going, we don't know where to live, so we're like, we'll live there tonight. We'll live there tomorrow. We'll build the kennel. And as a coach, and I know you've been really helpful to me because I've had some coaching with Katie, because she's lovely. you managed to, to say, well, what are you doing next? What's this week's goal? And I could do that for myself because I know, but it's not that we can't do it for ourselves. It's that somebody else says it and says the obvious thing to us, and it almost like takes the pressure off as well. It's almost like having a coach is like it's like writing down your stuff. When you write things down, it's kind of like self-coaching. You've written it down, so it's out of your head. But if you have someone who's standing up for you, they will have also taken some notes, and they'll remind you next week that you said you were going to do X, Y, Z. But something even better, and I know you're very good at this, and so why we all should have coaches is that we want to borrow the belief of the coach, don't we? When we're not believing in ourselves. And that's very, very key. And this is this magical thing. If the coach says, I believe in you, and you're sitting there going, I can't do this. I know I can't do this. And the coach, yes, you can. Yes, you can. And even though your brain's going, no, she's rubbish. That's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. What a coach does is they create this little gap between your voice saying you can't and the possibility that you can. And if there's a tiny little crack, then that means you think maybe, and we talk about this a lot on the podcast, maybe you can doubt your doubt. So anyway, you're brilliant at that, but but not all coaches are. Some coaches are a bit too like, but again, it's a flavour, isn't it? We all have to find a coach that works for us. You see, I like Katie because she's like, you're not a cheerleader, you're a super cheerleader. You're like, you're amazing. And you know what? I like to hear that. I mean, it's like, yeah, thank you, I am,
because it's true.
but even we're all amazing. Everyone's amazing, and in fact, we're living or breathing. We're an incredible human being, so we can start there, right? I'm breathing, yay!
Yay! I know. First step.
I'm
so
breathing.
wonderful.
I have a heartbeat. Okay.
Right.
So what's next for you? So I always ask, because obviously now I have this podcast, so I'm used to ask the question there, so I ask it here as well. What are your dreams, Katie? What are your
this is fun. Okay, so 20 years from now, I want to have the Tony Robbins. He makes incredible events. He gets people results. He does big, beautiful events. I want to have the breakthrough skills of Tony Robbins to be able to put on events like that. And I want to have the publishing and the media influence of like Oprah Winfrey, what she has been. She's been so amazing for so long, and she's built so many outlets. I really see that as like I'm the next generation of that. I already see it. It's already a done deal. I'm not sure. And you don't have to know the how, you just have to know the what, right? So the what is 20 years from now. I want to combine those skill sets of media publishing and breakthrough events. And then of course, writing amazing materials and raising up the next leaders in our world, because wow, I like you, Lisa, I wish I had you in my life 20 years ago. I wish I had me in my life 20 years ago. I mean, I would have been, so much further ahead. And just having someone who says, you are amazing, you can do it, you are here on purpose, your life is not a mistake, and everything that you've been through is going to be a blessing for someone else. That is what I want to say to everyone. And I want the next generation to hear it and then to pass it on, because we get to create this world that we live in. We get to create what we want to have. We get to go after our dreams. We get to go after our business. So that's the 20 year. And then just in the next 6 months, like I said, this year, I'm going to be pressing into being very uncomfortable, starting a mastermind. And I'm starting to talk with, I'm just looking, I'm seeing who are the wonderful women that I know that, and I don't know exactly what the mastermind is going to be. I mean, this is way outside of anything I've ever done before, but I want
comfort zone, but that's a good place to be, right? You don't grow unless you're outside the comfort zone.
Exactly. Yes. And every single day I am, Lisa, every single day I do something that is so hard, it scares me to death. And if you aren't doing that, if your audience isn't doing something every day that scares them to death, I just want to say, why not? What are you waiting for? Let me be the one who says, fail forward, follow my lead. I mean, I'm failing all the time. I had an interview earlier today and I was like, oh, dear Jesus, please don't let me fall off the chair. And I didn't. But, like you just have to show up. And even if you don't show up perfectly, like that's one of the things that's so wonderful about these media outlets. It's like, oh, the stream failed. Oh, well, start it again. It's not the end of the world. And that is a beautiful thing to hear, that we can make mistakes and it won't be the end of the world. And we can keep going after our goals. And even if we have bad day after bad day after bad day, training our minds to look for what were 3 good things that happened today. This is a discipline that I've had to study myself. My husband was diagnosed with lupus last year, and he had a series of really serious pneumonia infections since 2016.
Before COVID. Oh my God. Yes.
Right. So we're like seriously in quarantine, but I'm thinking every day, and I have a little miracle journal that I write down. What are 3 things that happened today that I didn't expect? So one of them was yesterday. Can I share this with you real quick?
Yeah. Go for it.
So fun. Okay. So I found myself with a few minutes. I called one of my best girlfriends. She lives in Arizona, which is the other side of the United States. And I've missed her for months. We just haven't had a moment to connect. And the sun came out here in East Tennessee. It's been very bitter cold. And so yesterday it warmed up. The sun was out. Okay, that's a miracle. That's a miracle. The sun came out and I got my vitamin D. So that's 1 right there. 2 is I got to talk to my girlfriend. And she has 2 very young children. She's a millennial. I'm not. And anyway, but that's not the point. The point is that we didn't expect to be able to coordinate our calendars. We've been trying for months, but it worked out. Okay. That's miracle number 2. Little things. But then we talked for like an hour, and I have these tree stumps in my backyard that I've arranged as an obstacle course because I'm really creative and weird like that. And so I put them in the word joy. I arranged my tree stumps into the word joy in my backyard.
You made a pattern of
yes,
in your
garden.
Yes,
it says joy. Yes. And then I wrapped them with Christmas lights because I'm really weird that way. And so I wrapped them all with Christmas lights and they finally worked. I've been trying to get that project with the lights.
Do send a picture. Just post a picture. I want to see.
I'll have my son put the drone up in the air tonight so he can get a good shot.
Yeah.
But it's just those little things of like, what can I do today that's going to fuel my tank? What can I do today? What can I do in this moment that's going to make me feel better? Maybe it's just a stinking glass of water, but what can I do for me right now that actually will really help? And then at the end of the day, just going, wow, there were some really sweet moments that I didn't expect. And if I choose to focus on the good, it's going to make my life better.
and the stronger we feel, and the more, again, self-love, self-care, which particularly now, but always, because if we're feeling better, then we are better for everyone around us. We're more successful as well. It has to start here. Like charity starts at home, and literally charity starts in our heart for ourselves as well. We need to be our best friends. I've started doing this thing called Attitude of Altitude. It's a crazy thing. So I post on this group, a friend is another business group, and every day I'm posting 1 sentence, and they call the attitude of altitude, meaning the attitude of being high, the attitude of going up. I mean, I like the alliteration thing, so it's kind of weird, but I like it. And that that's the I've forgotten what I was going to say.
So you're posting in the group. Did you have a blessing yesterday? What happened for you yesterday?
Well, I was going to say, because it was like that. So I was, I'm actually saying something every day that's like aligned with something I've learned, and I'm just sharing it because it makes, I know what I was going to say. So it makes me feel good. This is the weird thing that I decided, learning about myself. If I go online and I talk to you, or I post 1 sentence in a group, which is something nice, like, be your own best friend. That was what it was. Be your own best friend. And that, made me smile inside. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Posting that and sharing that, because I need to remember to be my own best friend. And I thought it's a good idea if everyone else remembers to be their own best friend too. And this is my way of serving and inspiring. So I want to serve and inspire people to live their dreams. So be your own best friend is one of the fundamental things, like you're saying, be grateful for the little things, because we have to start with ourselves, and we build up around. You can't run a multi-million-pound company and hate yourself. Or if you did manage it, you'll end up being ill at the end of it. You'll have millions of pounds and you'll be dead. Or your family will hate you. Your wife will leave. Your kids won't talk to you. And that stuff happens. It is about, you've got to love yourself, and then, and from that, more can occur. The love emanates outwards. And it sounds such a cliche. And, I was like, love yourself, what's that mean? But, it actually is. There's this guy, Joseph McClendon, who I absolutely adore. And he's really funny. He's not everyone's cup of tea because he's kind of farcical in the way he does coaching. But so he says, you got to shake your ass when you feel a bit grumpy. You stand there and you shake your ass and pat yourself on the back and you say, I am magnificent. and he makes us say this, over and over. And I think you've probably seen him. And it's kind of like, that's weird. But the shake your ass thing just wants to get you to move, and it's to get you to get out of the chair. You can't shake your ass, as he says, because he's a shake your ass, because he's American. I get shake your ass, because I'm English. You can't do that sitting down. So that's the whole point, because that gets you out of the chair. And it's a bit like what you're saying in coaching. A coach can help you get out of the chair, because life happens in action. And I mean, of course, I'm sitting down right now, but at least my voice
much
is
more.
yeah, but I'm still moving. So it's all about, it's getting into action. And for me, sharing what I think is like life wisdom inspires myself. And that's the most incredible magic of life, is the more we give, the more we get. And it's a weird thing. I mean, I'm sure you're finding that with all your work you're doing now. OBS just quit on me. I know that's fine. I'm still here, right?
Yeah. Oh no.
Screen flashed up and went, something quit. I'm like, okay, it's fine. So, do you know, it's really exciting. I'm going to share with you, for some extraordinary reason, we've got transcription on this. I upgraded on the software I'm using, and I've got words on my Facebook stream. I'm like so excited.
Love it.
I'm like, I've got words. I mean, I've been watching it. Like, I wasn't going to say anything. I'm like, oh my goodness, we've got words.
That's awesome.
I love it when technology works. It's very, very, very cool. So now you've got some really huge dreams there, and it was reminding me, what's that lovely lady, Maya Angelou? Have you read any of her stuff?
Oh yes. Yeah.
Because she inspired Oprah. So this is an example of the chain, right? She inspired Oprah, who obviously is one of the mentors in your mind who's inspired you. And Maya, I think it's pronounced, isn't it? She was a voice, and I watched something briefly on Goldcast, that shows all these things about how I didn't get the whole story. It was but there was a period of time where she didn't speak for 6 years or something, because she thought that she shouldn't, because something bad happened when she did speak. And I mean, her story. So if anyone out there, sorry, it's your interview and I'm stealing it, I'm sorry.
But I'm enjoying it every minute.
You made me think about what you were saying, and I was saying Maya Angelou, she was the voice, and she inspired Oprah, who inspired you. So this is the link. But she stood up. She was raped age 9 or something. I didn't know that. I found that out today. And she was told that if she spoke out about it, her brother would die. I mean, you can imagine what that is like, age 9. And yet look, in the end, what that woman did. She was so extraordinary in her life, and she stood up and wrote, I don't know, dozens of books, and inspired so many people. And that's where I'm going with this. We need to find our purpose, and you know yours. You know yours, and that's such a gift. And I think that's one of the things we need to find is we need to find our gift, and we need to find our purpose. We need to find our special. I was actually, is there a difference? I'm going to ask you this. Is there a difference between your purpose and your gifts? What do you think about that?
Oh, that's interesting. I think they're closely linked, right? Closely linked. So purpose and evolve. That's the thing. So like I have an overarching statement that I say, like, I'm here to know God's love for me more and to share his love with others. So that's like the overarching purpose. But how I do that can be a million different ways. And then the gifts, well, I just happen to be really comfortable talking with people. And I've developed this, I remember making a decision in 2009 that I wanted to be an encourager. And so I remember praying about that and saying, God, give me an insight about every single person that I meet, that I will always have something to say to them, to encourage them. And I haven't prayed that perfectly by any stretch of the imagination, but it caused a ripple effect in my thinking that even now. So whatever your gift is, it can be grown, right? It's not just like one thing, but if you're breathing, that's a start. And that's enough.
Yeah, Exactly. It always gives you something to be grateful for, because when you're dead, you're not breathing. You don't have to worry about gratitude. It's time to move on to the next soul life. But if you're here, we can start with I'm breathing. But since your gifts are the natural God-given gifts, and then your purpose is a way of using the gifts. So your purpose, you speak to people and you coach for that. But because you have this purpose and your gift is the speaking. No, it's just an interesting thing, because you're right, the purpose is bigger, and so you use your gifts within the purpose differently. So one could inspire somebody by, I don't know, maybe in some ways, like if you're an athlete, you can inspire someone getting a gold medal. So if you go out and say you came from a broken family and you'd had a really hard time, but you train and you win a gold medal, that's a fantastic inspirational story. And that, just by the very nature of the person doing that, is inspiring. So they don't have to coach us, they don't have to do anything, but we can just read about it as long as we know about the story. So there's different ways to move people. But one of the most important things is to share whatever you are. It's we don't learn if we don't read it, write it, see it in a movie, hear it in music, talk to each other. And we've got this internet now, this communication platform, as you said, over and over and over and over, which means that we can, and maybe that's, why people are changing. Some obviously, because the riots in America have not been so good recently. The information spreads fast, whether it be good or bad. But I believe that ultimately the cream will rise to the top, so the good will overcome. Maybe I'm naive, I don't know. I mean, what do you, and I'm going to be political here. So, I mean, what are your feelings on what's happening with the riots, and you're in America, I'm watching it from here in the UK, but what's it like being there and watching your country in quite a mess, really?
Yeah, yes, I agree with you. If my focus, thankfully, I have enough focus to know exactly what I have control over and what I don't. And so just knowing what my limits are, my end goal is not to go into politics. So I've been very selective about what I say about politics, because I want to have intelligent conversations with people. And if I'm not willing to, fact check everything I say for the next 20 years, then I'm not going to go into a particular arena that I'm not an expert in and say, this is what I think should happen, because the information changes so quickly, Lisa. It's terrifying. And then what we're allowed to see versus what we're not. I used to work for the news. I worked for Fox News in San Diego. I wrote the news, and I was shocked at how easy it was to turn a story. I mean, and I was like, nobody's double checking this. Maybe I would have lost my job if I had done something wrong, but there is a narrative. There are people who have to answer to other people. And so as far as that's concerned, I've decided that's not my thing right now. Now, I do think it's my responsibility to prosper, because the more prosperous you are, the more influence you can have. And so if I want to help guide my country, and I do, then the best thing I can do is to develop my gifts, develop my purpose, make a lot of money, find the people who that is their gift, that is their purpose, is to take leadership, and to support them in doing that. That's really what I see my role is for the next 20 years, as far as politics in my country is concerned. But I take that very seriously.
I understand. And are you one of the people that doesn't watch the news? Because there's quite a big movement of people now who's choosing just not to watch the news. I know Dean Graziosi doesn't watch the news, hasn't watched the news in 10 years. Do you basically avoid the news?
Well, that's an interesting question. So, in my bio, I shared that we were homeschoolers. For many years, we didn't use television at all, except for documentaries and movies. And, if it was a really good PBS series or something, we'd watch that. But we didn't have cable. And then this last year, we got cable. And I'm like, oh, now I wish we hadn't.
Really? You honestly wish you hadn't? I mean, it would be, yeah.
Because for every one article on one side, there's another article on the other side. And really, for me, this is maybe this sounds terrible, but I think that to the extent that you have means and influence, you have a responsibility. And so, I have this little responsibility in this little world that I'm in right now. I'm a year out of working with international students. I'm a year into my coaching career. I see this as a long-term thing, but I'm only a year into it. And so I've wrestled a lot. And I actually did take a political stand back last summer and then had to backpedal on my position. And so that was a hard lesson, Lisa, to be like, oh, I actually got that wrong. And so I'm extremely cautious about that at this point. But this past week, just to answer your question, this past week, I'm not watching the news.
I'm not.
The week before that, yes. The week before, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky. I'm over here, so I'm British, so I'm like, okay, it's like really not really anything to do with me what goes on over there, really.
Right.
But it is. It's interesting. I think I find it interesting just to see how hardline people's views can be, like regarding who's right, who's wrong. Mm-hmm. It's just that there is no listening to each other, and that's frightening. But it's a human thing, and the art of communication is getting somebody to hear what you say, and that is where the problem is, because if they're going, I'm not listening because I'm you and you're me and you're a different party and I'm a different party, and that's the challenge I think we've got. And I personally believe that the whole world needs to work together. I don't think we can go like, well, I'm okay, Jack, you're not. I think with 6-7 billion of us or whatever it is, we've got to find a way, and even work with the people that we feel maybe don't follow our rules. I mean, it's like we've got to like work with them, but obviously not maybe accept. I mean, it's so hard. You go like, okay, your politics in their country don't suit us, but so do we just block them out completely? That's probably not realistic. I mean, it fascinates me. So I actually do watch a lot of politics. And I did think, I will admit to having thought about running for politics in this country. I had a friend who was there, and I got to go around Parliament quite a lot and hang out with him in the House of Lords. And when I got to actually see behind the scenes, I was fascinated. And I went through a little while going like, I'd love to represent, a constituency and try and change things. I kind of thought that would be so cool. And then I realized you needed lots and lots and lots of money, because in order to get yourself on the ticket, like to get yourself known, you can't just turn up and go, well, I haven't, I make this, and everyone else is a multi-millionaire, and it's not the same. So that was the end of it. It was a short dalliance with the idea of going into politics, but never say never. It might happen one day. But you're right. We I think can make more of a change with our voices speaking here, to be honest, because if you are a politician, you're limited. If you have to have a party, and then if you don't say the right thing, you're ousted out of your party. So we have more of a voice being, like almost libertarian. It's like, this is me and I'm doing it my way, and you listen if you want, and you don't listen if you don't.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you one tricky thing, which I want you to help me understand, because and this is really interesting, but I noticed you put in your bio, so you've caused me to ask this. At the end of your bio, you said that you are a woman of faith, and I forget exact words you used, and I haven't got it written down in front of me, but you said that you accept your husband as the headship of the family. And this is an interesting area for me. Okay, so please understand, and I mean no disrespect, but I struggle with the concept, because I wouldn't ever let my husband or a partner be a headship over me. So, and you're an amazingly bright woman, but a woman of faith. So how do you pull that together? Help me understand.
Yeah, I think it's easier to talk about what it doesn't mean.
Okay.
So him being when I said in my bio that I am, and it's funny, I don't know, I've never introduced myself that way. So it's kind of funny that came out, and I wrote that, and then I shared that with you, but under the headship of my husband. So I for me, that was, this is a stand that I'm taking, that I understand, and my worldview is that there is a created order of things. And when I align myself with my
oh, she's frozen again. She really didn't want to answer that question. She had the she had the whole internet crash on answering the question. I suspect she'll have to pop back on. Yep, she's gone. That's so funny. Sometimes, you see, so Katie's working with a higher purpose here, and they're going, no, we're not going to answer the question. So she's gone, and I'm pretty sure she'll have to come back. Meanwhile, apparently someone has won. Oh no, maybe they haven't won. There's a £49 million jackpot. Those of you who are in the UK, go get your Euro Millions ticket tonight. It's flashed up for some inexplicable reason, because I generally don't read The Sun, but during COVID, the the Sun seemed to attach itself to my browser. And so I constantly get updates from the Sun paper. Now, I would never read the Sun. It's not, it's a red top paper. It's not really my thing. But I'm quite enjoying the flashing up, actually. It's quite, because I get to see all this sort of stuff that I don't normally read. Anyway, I wouldn't normally know that the Euro Millions is a massive £49 jackpot. So, look, someone's got to win it, right? So out you go. I'm just waiting for, hopefully, Katie to come back here. And I hope you guys are enjoying it. We've got a comment here. Let's have a look. Just going to zoom that out there. And, Paul is talking. And Marissa has been watching. Thank you so much for watching. There
you are.
There, you're back. Excellent.
Hold on.
Yeah, I was joking that was a hard question to ask, and you crashed.
I can't hear you, Lisa.
You got it.
Can you hear me?
Yes. We're all good.
You can.
Yes.
Why am I not able to hear you? Hold on just a second. Let me let me go off and come back on. I think that it's I'm not using Google Chrome.
She'll be right back. So go and get your Euro Millions ticket. And then I'm just curious, how's everyone doing with the COVID thing? I have to ask, because obviously the R rate in England is over 1. And how is that working for people? Are you really managing to stay locked down? We're now a few more days into it. Are you finding it very difficult? I mean, pop it in the chat if you are struggling, or are you actually getting used to it now? Because we've got a lot longer. At least, we aren't going to have the lockdown. There was some conversation about us locking down harder in England this weekend, but I don't know. I haven't heard anything about us locking down harder. Has anyone heard anything about that? Here she is. She's back. So we're just going to finish up with Katie now. Okay, where's she gone? Well, I've got 3 participants. Oh, I think that's Katie twice. Yay!
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that.
No, I was joking. I was like, ask the lady a difficult question, and her internet hangs off immediately.
That was funny. I'm like, I guess we're not talking about this. Okay.
No, it's fine. So, no, I didn't hate to put you on the spot, but I'm actually interested, because it's just, curious to me. And so you were explaining, it's not what we think it is, I think you were saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe that's where we should start, is when you hear that I am under the headship of my husband, what does that mean to you?
That kind of means that he's like my boss and he's in control of me. That's what I hear.
No. That's not what that means.
Okay, thank goodness. Oh no, we're not going to lose you again. Oh, we are going to lose her again. Oh, Katie, where have you gone? We've got a really good frozen picture of her, though. Got to admit, that's a very good frozen picture. That I need to, if I can get a picture of this before she unfreezes. Screenshot it. Yeah, that's a great one. She's going to think this is very funny. Okay, she's gone again. We've got 8 minutes before I have to switch into podcast mode. And I've lost my lovely Katie. She's gone again. She really doesn't want. But it's good. So it's not about having your husband your boss. You see, I always wanted to understand that. I've struggled to understand this my whole life. So we're waiting for Katie to come back. Yeah, it was the one thing that always stopped me actually kind of being a fully committed Christian, was the idea that I would have to cleave to my husband. I read that in the Bible. I went, I'm out of here. I can't do that. And, so hopefully Katie, she's going to come on. Yay! You're back. Okay, let's try to finish this one. We have 6 minutes. Let's knock it out. Okay, so it's not that they're your boss. Okay.
No. Gosh, no. But that's interesting, because I think that whether I realized it or not, for many years, I didn't understand what it meant. What does it mean that he is the head of the family? And so here's what it means. It means that ultimately he is responsible for whether or not we are thriving. That's what that means.
Okay.
That ultimately he is responsible for whether or not we are thriving, and that he answers to God for that. That's what that means.
So it's a lot of responsibility on the bloke.
Yeah, it is. It's great.
Yeah, no, I get that now. I get that. And that's interesting. So
Right.
For correcting that, because it's the bit that I've always freaked out about and not really had it explained to me. Sort of read it somewhere and went, oh my God. But that's cool. So that is hard work for them.
Yeah, it is hard work for them. It is a lot of pressure, and it really demands that both of us continue to grow no matter what.
Yes.
That we continue to develop our communication skills, that we continue to understand what are we responsible for, what are our boundaries,
Yes.
All these things. So that was really hard for me, because for many years, he would ask me, to do this or have the students come, and I said no, and then he did it anyway, and then I comply.
Yeah.
I comply.
Yeah.
But that wasn't, I now know that, so this is dicey, right? So what ended up happening was what he was asking me to do wasn't actually, are you still there? You froze for a second.
Okay.
So what he was actually asking me to do was not sin. So this is important. So like from our worldview, there are certain things you can ask that are required. You can ask your spouse to mow the lawn on Saturday. You can ask your spouse to maybe take this job and not that job. But you can't violate them as a human being. So when you're in relationship, and this is something we're still working out, is that I'm responsible for this, and I'm not responsible for his thoughts. I'm not responsible for his feelings, attitudes, beliefs, behaviors, choices, values, limits, talents, desires, or who or what he loves and trusts. So this means that both of us are autonomous human beings, that the codependency that so often happens in families where I'm not okay unless my spouse is okay. It's like, well, actually, that's not true. I get to be okay because I'm a human being, whether or not my spouse is okay. But I'm responsible because I'm in this relationship with them. I'm responsible to show up and help them become their best version of themselves. So that it was always going to look like speaking the truth in love. So if I'm, carrying around this attitude of disdain, which I'm guilty of doing because he didn't do this or he didn't do that, we all do that, but it's a very immature way to live. And very destructive. And if I was watching this show about a married couple, and I'm like, well, no wonder the marriage broke down. They're 2-year-olds having a fight over, who's going to get the biggest toy. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Yeah. And yet I've been that person.
We've done it. I've done it.
We've all done it.
Yeah,
I mean, nobody's born knowing this stuff, right?
Yeah. That's so good. That's so
nobody. Yeah. So nobody's born, knowing how to have a good marriage. Nobody is born automatically like this. These are things you really have to wrestle with, like the word submission. What does that really mean? And what does it really mean? Headship, what does that mean? I don't have a voice. That's actually not what that means. And in the Bible, it actually says, even to fathers, don't provoke your children. That means listen to them. if they feel loved and heard, they're not going to rebel. They're going to feel loved and heard. It's going to be a different dynamic in the home. So yeah, so I don't know how much time you wanted to spend on that. It looks like we're almost out of time.
Yeah, we're almost out of time. Unfortunately, I've got to go and record a podcast now. Otherwise, you have to come back. I know, it's actually really interesting. I would love to invite you back sometime to talk about relationship, because it sounds like you've really you've wrestled with it, you've looked at it in a way that most people don't. And I mean, we've just touched on it. And I'm like, I want to know more. So Katie coming back to talk about relationships, and because it is about loved and heard, feeling loved and heard. Those are my takeaways there. So good. My darling, it is 20:59 and I have to be somewhere in a minute. So literally, I am going to love and leave you and say goodbye for now. But I will see you very, very soon. And everybody, I will pop all of Katie's further links underneath this and on YouTube, and I'll show you how to get hold of Katie Speaking. It's katiespeaking.com. katiespeaking.com. Yes?
Yes, that's correct. You've got it.
Speaking.com. I'm just seeing whether or not it picks up. I'm curious.
Probably won't pick up right now.
Correctly. I'm looking. Katie.
Oh, don't put it in right now.
Speaking.com. Of course, yes. I'm just testing the track.
Hold off on that. If they want to get a hold of me, the best way is my Facebook page, which is Katie Speaking /Katie Smith. So that's the best way. katiespeaking.com is under construction.
I'll put your links and everything anyway. Anyway, you can always come to me and I'll put you in contact with Katie, because she is available for coaching and she is amazing. So bless you.
Amazing, Lisa. Thank you
so much. And we'll see you soon. Bye.
Can't wait to hear from you guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye. Do 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 do. Do do.